Hello students, you are welcome to Nunia Sir's English classes. Today we'll study 5th chapter of grade 12 entitled Indigo. The chapter is written by Louis Fischer. So first of all, let's peep into the life of Louis Fischer. He was born in 1896 and died in 1970. He was born in Philadelphia. He served as a volunteer in British Army between 1918 and 1920. For 2 years, he served British Army. Fischer made a career as a journalist and wrote for the New York Times, the Saturday Review, and for European and Asian publications. He was also a member of the faculty at Princeton University. The following is an excerpt. Following means this chapter. The chapter Indigo is a small part of his book entitled The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. It's a biography of Mahatma Gandhi written by Louis Fischer. And according to Times Educational Supplement, this book has been the best ever written on Gandhiji. Louis Fischer meets Gandhiji. This is the opening of our chapter. The author Louis Fischer meets Gandhiji way back in 1942, first time, and the meeting took place at Sevagram Ashram. Gandhiji shared with Louis Fischer how he urged the departure of the British in 1917. Gandhiji started his process of forcing Britishers to quit India way back in 1917. Gandhiji went to attend, he also told that how he went to attend annual convention of, it was an annual conference and meeting of Indian National Congress in 1916 at Lucknow. In that meeting there were 2031 delegates, representatives, and it was there only that Rajkumar Shukla, who is a very important character of our chapter, met Gandhiji there. Rajkumar Shukla was a very poor peasant of Champaran, and all the peasants in those days in Champaran, they were suffering from very bad and heinous system of sharecropping which was introduced by the Britishers and the British planters. So somebody told that there is a person who could help the Champaran peasants, and Rajkumar Shukla went to find out the person, meet the person, and invite him to help them out of that heinous system, cruel system. Rajkumar Shukla, we can see Rajkumar Shukla in this picture. He was a peasant from Champaran region. He was poor and emancipated, very lean and thin, physically very weak. He was illiterate but resolute. Though he was uneducated, he was not educated properly, unlettered person, but he was having iron will. He was having strong determination. And his strong determination and resolution only helped him to convince Gandhiji and bring him to Champaran. He went to Lucknow to meet Gandhiji on the advice of somebody. Gandhiji told him about his other appointments. At that time, Gandhiji was very much busy in attending conferences and meetings, and he said that he was having a lot of appointments. So that did not disappoint. That fact didn't disappoint Rajkumar Shukla. Rather, he continued after Gandhiji just like his shadow. And he waited for his last appointment. He never left the side of Gandhiji. He took Gandhiji to Champaran from Calcutta. Finally, the day came Rajkumar Shukla was waiting for, and Gandhiji attended his last conference and at Calcutta. From Calcutta, he invited Gandhiji along with him, and they both boarded in the train and reached to Patna, where they went to meet Dr. Rajendra Prasad. They were denied water from the well. Actually, Rajkumar Shukla was a frequent visitor of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. He used to go over there to narrate the plighted condition of the people over there and seek help, because Dr. Rajendra Prasad was a very big lawyer. So he was expert in law and all. So he used to help the people to fight their cases and all these things. So in this case, he used to just visit his home frequently, and the servants and attendants and the people at Dr. Rajendra Prasad's house, they were quite familiar with this person. They knew that he was a small scale farmer. When Gandhiji went along with him, they took Gandhiji to be another simple peasant, simple small scale farmer who had come to seek help from Dr. Rajendra Prasad. And they thought that they were untouchable, from the low caste. When they wanted to draw water from the well, they were denied, because those days untouchability was at the peak. So this incident happened with Gandhiji when he first time went over there to see Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Gandhiji decided to first go to Muzaffarpur. He did not go to Champaran directly, because he wanted to collect some information, form a ground on which he could fight the case of the peasants. Gandhiji in Muzaffarpur. He started from Patna, and Muzaffarpur was en route, means on the route from Patna to Champaran. So he reached over there at night on April 15, 1917. There he had already written a letter to J.B. Kripalani. So he was ready at the platform along with he was Acharya, he was a professor. So along with his students, he came at the platform at night to receive Gandhiji. Gandhiji stayed there for 2 days, and he stayed there in the house of Professor Malkani, another government teacher. And Gandhiji said that it was very difficult to harbor a person like me, to give shelter, to invite me to stay at home, a person like me, because those days nobody dared to support the people who were supporting and advocating home rule movement. Means India should be ruled by Indians only. This is called home rule movement. They wanted to force Britishers to leave India and go back to their country, and Gandhiji was one of them. So he said that if Britishers came to know about that somebody had sheltered them, the person was taken to task. He had to face the music, and because he was government servant, so there was a risk of losing his job also, at the same time imprisonment also. So he says that he was a very brave guy in that case. Mr. Malkani he is talking about. Crowd of people came. Next day, when people came of the surrounding locality came to know that somebody had come to support them, they came in great number to see Gandhiji. Gandhiji, not only simple people, even the lawyers of that area, they came to see Gandhiji, and they narrated their stories, how they used to support peasants fighting their cases in the court, and in return they used to charge some money from them. When Gandhiji came to know about the size of their fee, how much money they were taking as a fee from the peasants, he chided the lawyers. He shouted at them. He became angry with them and shouted at them. He reprimanded, criticized them very badly and angrily. Then he said that there is no use taking their cases to court and fighting for them. The reason being, unless these peasants become free from their fear, their main enemy is their fear, not the Britishers. The moment they become bold, they will take their stand, they'll be able to raise their voice for their rights, and they will fight against the Britishers. And that day will force Britishers to think twice about Indians, and will force them even to quit India. And this was one of Gandhian philosophies. He believed in making people fearless and self-reliant. In the picture we can see Gandhiji deboarding from train, Professor J.B. Kripalani and Professor Malkani. Sharecropping system. Then we come to know about how the most of the arable land means productive land, fertile land, the land which could produce more and more to the maximum crop, you can say. It was divided into large estates, and those estates were owned by the Britishers, but they were given to Indian tenants. Tenant is the person, the farmer, who works on the land of other people, and in return, he gives some share of the crop to the owner. This is called sharecropping. So, chief commercial crop in those days was indigo. The landlords compelled all tenants, all those farmers and peasants, to plant 3/20 or 15% of their holdings, means total land, with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. It means 3/20 means, suppose one person is given 20 acres of land. So out of the 20 acres of land, that farmer will do farming of indigo on 3 acres. Out of 20, 3 acres of land was to be cultivated with the farming of the crop of indigo. An entire crop was to be given to the British planters. It was the rent for the land. Or another way was 15%. Suppose a person is having 100 acres of land. So simply speaking, 15 acres of land was to be cultivated with indigo farming, and it was to be given completely to the British planters. This was the case. This is how sharecropping was practicing those days in Champaran. Synthetic indigo by Germany. Now, the British planters used to sell that indigo, natural indigo, into the international market and used to reap huge benefits. But that was a time when Germany introduced synthetic man-made indigo. Germany introduced the synthetic indigo in the international market, and the moment the synthetic indigo came into the international market, the prices of natural indigo, they dipped. They became low. So there was a dip in the prices of natural indigo. Obviously, the British planters knew that they would suffer a huge loss as a result. So they made a plan. The landlords demanded a compensation from the tenants and got ready to free them from the sharecropping. They played a trick with them that they would be released from this sharecropping system, but in return, the tenants would have to give them in cash. Some peasants agreed and signed the contract. The British planters, they prepared a document, a contract to be signed by the peasants and by them also, that they would be giving cash compensation to the planters. So many peasants were there who got irritated with this system, because to them the system was very irksome, very ticklish, not good, unpleasant for them. So they readily put their signatures on the document and paid their full amount to the planters. Whatever it was due on them, it was paid to them. Some farmers were there who protested, who denied to put their signature and give cash to the Britishers. Maybe they were having some knowledge, or just like that only, they denied. And they decided to go to the court and file a case against the planters. When planters came to know about the planning of those remaining tenants, they hired the thugs, the fighters, the people actually who fight with sticks. They are known as thugs. In older days, they were known to be the thugs. So they hired the marshals, you can say, or the fighters, to beat the people if they try to go to the court, just to frighten the peasants. Now this was the time when Gandhiji arrived in Champaran. Just like a Masiha, he reached to Champaran to safeguard the poor peasants. And after reaching over there, he started to get the facts about the issue, though the whole scenario was narrated completely by Rajkumar Shukla to him. But Gandhiji was such a person who believed in personal research and all these things. He wanted to collect data from different resources. Then, after analysis, he wanted to fight against the Britishers to make the case strong and in favor of the peasants. Secretary of British Landlord Association denied Gandhiji, calling him as an outsider, to which Gandhiji protested. So, Secretary of the British Landlord Association, he told Gandhiji, by the way, Gandhiji went to him to get some facts. He denied that we can't reveal any information to you because you are an outsider. Gandhiji protested. He said that no, I am not an outsider, rather you people are outsider. I am an Indian and I am fighting for India, and Champaran is in India. How can I be called an outsider? Rather you people are outsider. So he protested very strongly. Then Tirhut Commissioner, he went to this person also, the office of this Tirhut Commissioner, and that commissioner tried to bully Gandhiji. He tried to torture Gandhiji and asked him to leave the place forthwith, quickly and immediately. Gandhiji went to Motihari. Gandhiji overlooked all these orders, all these advices and threats. He ignored everything and he started for Motihari. He went to Motihari, name of a place, a village, and there he took on a house which he converted into his headquarters. So all the meetings he conducted with Dr. Rajendra Prasad and other lawyers, eminent and prominent lawyers of the area, he used to conduct in that house only. And he started investigation system about the collection of the facts and all these things. Now Gandhiji got the news the very next day that some peasant in the nearby village was he was badly treated, tortured and beaten by the Britishers. So he started for that village to inquire about the health of the peasant. But somehow or anyhow we can say the British officials, they got the intimation that Gandhiji is going over there, and people were having great regards for Gandhiji, and they knew the situation could just turn the tables on them. So an official was sent to them, a messenger was sent. The messenger took Gandhiji on the way only. He interceded and intercepted Gandhiji on the way. He gave him the official order to return to Motihari. Gandhiji complied to the order. He agreed to the order, and without meeting the farmer, he came back to his house in Motihari. Court summons to Gandhiji. Gandhiji was asked to leave Champaran immediately. Britishers filed a case against Gandhiji and court issued summons against Gandhiji, official legal orders to leave the place, that Champaran, immediately. Gandhiji denied to obey the order, and it was first time in the life of Gandhiji. Gandhiji writes that it was first time in my life that I disrespected, disregarded or denied to follow the legal rule, the law. Gandhiji telegrammed Dr. Rajendra Prasad and asked him to come with influential people. It was a trick to build up a pressure on the officials. He wanted to use the social power over here. And Gandhiji was master of that. He sent messages to his ashram also, intimating the people about the same. He wired to the Viceroy also, who was the representative of Britishers, high authority official. So people thronged Motihari. When the people got the message that their Masiha was at risk, Britishers were going to put him behind bars, he was about to be arrested. When people came to know about this fact, they thronged Motihari the next morning. The next morning, every inch of the land was under the feet of thousands of lakhs of the people. Motihari turned into the human black hole. Such a great number the people came in. The British officers felt helpless to regulate the crowd, and requested Gandhiji to help him. When Britishers saw the number of the people, they got baffled. They got surprised what to do, what not to do. It was very difficult for them to control the crowd. If the crowd went wild, they would take their life, definitely. They would have to pay a very big toll for that. So finally, they begged Gandhiji, requested him to ask the people to remain quiet and at peace. Gandhiji supported the Britishers. The court played the card of procrastination. Procrastination means to make delay in giving results, to which Gandhiji objected. When the judge and all, they saw that there was a great number of the people, and obviously it was a trick with Britishers. They wanted to make Gandhiji arrested and put him behind bars. And this was the rule with them, divide and rule. They wanted to separate the leaders from the subject, from the followers. So when there is no leader, followers will become weak automatically. This was the strategy with the Britishers. So at any charge, anyhow, they wanted to imprison Gandhiji. And they knew if at that time they had given their verdict about the imprisonment of Gandhiji, the crowd could go to any extent. It could have gone to any extent. So they delayed the process. But Gandhiji said, no, I need the results instantly. Gandhiji protested against the delay. He read a statement pleading guilty, and in front of the court, in front of the judge, he said that I feel guilty conscience. Means my inner voice says that I have done something wrong. What was that? He was involved, he told the court, in a conflict of duties. But what was that feeling of being guilty? Because he did not obey the law. When the law asked him, the officials asked him legally to leave the place immediately, he denied. But he says that it was not his fault. What happened? He says that he was in the conflict of duties, means he had two duties to fulfill. Which one to fulfill and which one not to fulfill. This was the case with him. And what was the duty? On one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker. He says that he did not want to become an example for others as a lawbreaker, because others would started copying Gandhiji. They would start copying Gandhiji, like whatever the orders are coming from court and from the authorities, they should be ignored, they should be denied, they should be violated, because Gandhiji had done. If the leader can do, followers obviously, subject obviously can do that. So he says that it was not my intention, setting an example of myself as a lawbreaker. On the other hand, to render the humanitarian and national service, to serve my countrymen and my people. He says that was another duty on my shoulder. I wanted to fulfill that also. I wanted to obey the law. I wanted to respect the law. At the same time, I wanted to discharge my duties to my nationals, to my people, to my brethren, for which he had come. And from Gujarat, he came to Champaran simply for that purpose only. It was the purpose to support the countrymen. He disregarded the order to leave, not for want of respect for lawful authority. And he says that it was not in his intention to humiliate the British officers by denying the compliance of the order. But he says that in obedience of the higher law of our being, the voice, conscience, he asked the penalty due. He says he could listen to either the court or his inner voice. Let me just simplify this one. He could listen to either the orders of the court or he could listen to the inner voice. And he says that he felt better to follow the inner voice this time. He had to make a choice between the two. Shall I disrespect the law, or shall I disrespect my inner voice? And he says that I opted for my inner voice. I supported my inner voice. I believed in listening to my inner voice. That's why I disrespected your law. I did not obey and abide by whatever you said. Gandhiji's deliberation with the lawyers. Now, Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, you can see in the pictures, Brij Kishore Babu and Maulana Mazrul Haq and several other prominent lawyers were there. When this case went on, Gandhiji invited all of them into the deliberation. They had a conference and they discussed over there. They planned in detail, like if in case I am put behind bars, so what should be the strategies of the people like you and others who are influential? How to handle the situation in that case? This is what they discussed about. They said they would go back to home in case Gandhiji was imprisoned. So during the conference, everybody in one voice they said that, because they had come there to support Gandhiji, and they told Gandhiji if he was imprisoned, then they did not have anybody to support, so simply speaking, they would be going back to their homes. To this, Gandhiji asked that, what about the injustice done to the peasants? Then he asked, who would support these peasants then? What would happen to these peasants who are suffering such a heinous practice like sharecropping? Every other day, the peasants are getting bad treatment at the hand of the Britishers. Who will take care of them? Listening to Gandhiji's this question, because they did not have any answer, so all the lawyers, they retreated into the another meeting and they started to discuss the matter all over again, and they agreed to give their arrest if need be. They all discussed and they came back to Gandhiji and said that they were ready to follow Gandhiji into jail. If Britishers would put Gandhiji into jail, they won't sit silently. They will show their protest and they will give their arrest also. When Gandhiji listened to this unanimous decision of all those lawyers, he exclaimed enthusiastically, said that the battle of Champaran is won. Means, simply speaking, he hinted that if you people can stand united this way with this spirit, then the battle will be won definitely by we people. So according to Gandhiji, battle could be won by standing united, by spirit, and these two things they displayed. As a result, he exclaimed the statement. Several days later, Gandhiji received a written communication from the magistrate informing him that Lieutenant Governor of province had ordered the case to be dropped. So whatever the case had been filed against Gandhiji, that case was dismissed. Gandhiji was set free. Civil disobedience has triumphed, has won, had got victory first time in modern India. Otherwise, whether things were legal or illegal, Britishers always try to suppress the voice and courage of Indians. The reason being, they wanted to show that only they were having the supremacy over them. They could only be right. Indians were always wrong. This was the mindset they wanted to develop and cultivate among Indians. They wanted to make Indians psychologically very weak. But it was first time that they had to kneel down in front of Gandhiji. Gandhiji and lawyers conducted far-flung inquiry of the peasants. Now they started their job. They started collecting the facts about the payment made by the peasants by personally going to the people, meeting them, asking them, and collecting the data. Formation of an inquiry commission, and finally their hard work bore fruit. Gandhiji was called by the Lieutenant Governor Edward Gate, we can see in the picture. So this LG called Gandhiji for the meeting. At this time, Gandhiji again invited all his friends, Dr. Rajendra Prasad and all those great lawyers, prominent lawyers and influential people, and laid a very long and detailed plan. He remained awake throughout the night. He made contact with the people, and later on he discussed and guided them how to do and what to do in case he doesn't come back. It could have been the plan of Britishers in the name of interview and meeting with Edward Gate, that is Lieutenant Governor. He could be called and he would be arrested there and then. Police people would not allow him to come back and meet you. So in that situation, what should have been done? This was the thing he discussed with his companions. He had 4 long-standing interviews with the LG. The LG Lieutenant Governor allowed the formation of inquiry commission for the investigation, and Lieutenant Governor Mr. Edward Gate gave permission to make a committee. That committee was given a responsibility to look into the matter of the planters and the peasants and then give the verdict in a very fair way. The commission comprised of 3 parties. Who were those 3 parties? Representatives of the landlords. Some planters were the part of that conference, that committee, that commission. Then representatives of the peasants, that was Mahatma Gandhiji. And the representatives of the government, means some government officials, some planters, and from peasant side it was Mahatma Gandhi. So they all formed that commission. The planters agreed to the refunds. When the inquiry went, because Gandhiji and his team, they had collected the depositions from 10,000, almost 10,000 peasants. They were having a very strong ground on the basis of data. And obviously the verdict went in the favor of the peasants, the tenants, the Indian farmers. And according to the decision of the verdict of the commission, British planters were at fault and they had to return the money paid to them by the Indian farmers. Now the British planters were afraid that, because now the ball was in the court of Mahatma Gandhi, the game was in the hand of Mahatma Gandhi, and he could play it the way he wanted. So they were afraid that Gandhiji would demand for 100% refund. But to their surprise, Gandhiji demanded only 50%. Those British planters, they got chance and they played a trick. They told Gandhiji that they were ready to pay only 25%, 1/4 of what they had been paid. Gandhiji didn't speak even a single word and took them by their words only. And he said that, yes, I accept 25%. Later on, when Gandhiji asked why he accepted 25% only, Gandhiji justified his stand saying that money was not important. The most important thing was to bring the Britishers down on their knees, to force them to bow down, to force them to accept the Indians' demand. This was the main thing. Gandhiji attacked the psychology of Britishers. He wanted to attack and he did that. He said now Indians will get that enthusiasm. They'll get a power. They'll get strength that yes, they had their rights, and if they raise their voice strongly, Britishers would have to listen to them at any cost. This was the spirit he wanted to enthuse into the head and heart of Indians. So he said that money was not important. Important was to break the ego of the Britishers in front of Indians, to make Britishers accept the demand of Indians, to bow in front of Indians. The planters returned the estates and sharecropping system came to its end. Finally, after some time, Britishers left all the estates and they were distributed among the peasants. Now the tenants became the farmers, means now the lands became theirs. They were having their own lands and started cultivating that way. Social upliftment. Now Gandhiji looks back and he finds that when first time Rajkumar Shukla went to him, he thought that he could resolve the matter, settle the matter within weeks or maybe days or weeks only. But this simple seeming thing, the issue of Champaran, this sharecropping system, was just like the tip of iceberg. Means it appeared to be a small issue, but in a reality it was a very big issue. And it took 7 months of Gandhiji. Continuously he remained in Champaran for 7 months, and after that also he frequented the place. He made frequent visits, and Gandhiji says almost 1 year he had to devote to the Champaran issue, and it became the turning point of his life. But after winning this case in the favor of Indian peasants, he analyzed the society and he came to know that the society, Champaran people, needed upliftment at different fronts. And what are those fronts? Educational and health and hygiene. These three things needed instant improvement. So he started working for this social upliftment also. As a result, in this process, he opened some schools with the help of his disciples, and prominent names are Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parekh. Mahadev Desai ji, Narhari Parekh ji, and his son Devdas. These photos relate. And over here we can see Kasturbai ji, Mrs. Gandhi. He opened clinics also to fight against the health issues, and on those clinics only three medicines were available: castor oil, quinine, and sulfur ointment. Either these medicines were given individually or in combination. Whether you have fever, headache, or clotted tongue, whatever the disease or ailment you are having, the treatment was only these three medicines, individually or in combination. Kasturbai trained the ladies into personal and social hygiene. She started training them how to keep themselves neat and clean, physically as well as surrounding also. Champaran episode proved to be the turning point. Why Champaran episode is called turning point? The reason being, it was Champaran where people got their first lesson of being bold and self-reliant. And when later on Gandhiji launched Quit India movement, Champaran people came forward to support him like anything. And results are in front of us. That's why Champaran episode is called to be the turning point of Gandhiji's life. Gandhiji decided, actually now the point comes, his one of the disciples was Charles Freer Andrews. He was a Christian. He was staying in India those days, and after some time he was about to go to Fiji. So Dr. Rajendra Prasad and other lawyers, they went to C.F. Andrews and requested him to stay back and help and support them. But Charles Freer Andrews put a condition that if Gandhiji allowed him, at the order and command of Gandhiji, he could stay back, otherwise not. So all the lawyers, including Dr. Rajendra Prasad, they came to see Gandhiji and requested him to ask Charles Freer Andrews to stay back and help them. Gandhiji, now later on we are told that he had read our minds correctly. Means Gandhiji read the psychology of the people, why they wanted the men to stay back and all. And Rajendra Prasad comments that we had no reply. Means Gandhiji simply denied, and he asked a question from all those lawyers, to which they couldn't reply. Gandhi, in this way, taught us a lesson in self reliance. And there was a reason why Gandhiji denied. Gandhiji knew that for time being they could have asked Charles Freer Andrews to stay back and help them, and he could have stayed back and helped also and supported also. But later on, in history, Indians would always be blamed that Indians were not capable to get their freedom without the support of the Britishers. And he was afraid of that. He wanted to fight for themselves, fight for country with the help of the countrymen only. He did not want to use anybody, he did not want to invite anybody outsider to support in that freedom movement. Otherwise, people later on would criticize the leadership also, that they were not capable to get their country free on their own. And in this way, Gandhiji, Dr. Rajendra Prasad says that Gandhiji taught the lesson of self-reliance. And students, keep this point in mind. This was one of the best teachings of Gandhiji. Gandhiji did not believe in big political changes. He always believed in small changes at personal level. Because to him, society and country is nothing, but this is the total sum of individuals. If individuals bring improvement in themselves, the country will improve as a result automatically. He wanted to make everybody self-reliant. So self-reliance, Indian independence and help to sharecroppers were all found together. So in this way, we came to know how Gandhiji helped the Champaran people and how this simple seeming episode, rather, let me just say this way, simple seeming episode became turning point of the life of Gandhiji. So that's all, students. I hope that you got the gist of the chapter. We'll see you soon with the next video. Till then, bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.